Hey, what's up, guys? This is another episode, Growth by Sean podcast. So I'm sitting here with someone that I really greatly respect, to be honest, is Jeffrey Sue. Jeffrey, how are you doing today?
Good, good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So I'm always thankful when someone will take some time and just speak with me. So kind of how I like to get my podcast started is just a little bit kind of like about you. It could either be kind of like how you got into coaching or kind of where your coaching is at now or anything in between that you might think that you want to share with us today, just so that people get like a little bit of background about you.
Yeah, sure. So I'm based out in Massachusetts, like yourself, I think, right?
Yep.
So I own First Call Out Fitness, obviously an online coaching brand. I've been coaching since 2013, so about 10 years now. I work primarily with general population. So I do have competitors, but mainly it's general population, people with thyroid issues, gut health issues, hormonal imbalances, and things like that. Work with a lot of women between the ages of 30 and maybe like 70. Really love it. I used to work in corporate finance and retail and healthcare for companies like TJX and Staples, which some people might know around here. Mm-hmm. I went to Bentley College. It was known as Bentley College back in the day. Graduated in 2006 with my undergrad degree in finance. And then I went back to Bentley almost 10 years later for my MBA. So I got that in like 2000, I don't know, I want to say like 2018 or I think it was 2018 that I got it. Yes, less than 10 years after my undergrad, and it helped me tremendously with my coaching business. I had never intended to go back to corporate. So yeah, here we are today.
Yeah, cool. So like, I'd love to just hear like why you were kind of like drawn to coaching and like kind of in that space and helping others, where that kind of started.
Well, I mean, when you work an office job, I'm sure a lot of people can identify with this. You're just a cog in the wheel and you're very replaceable. So I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to feel a little bit more special. I think, making a difference while it is like altruistic and you're helping others, I also feel like it does have a degree of selfishness to it because you, the person who wants to make the difference, want to feel a certain way that you're making an impact, that you're valued, that you're actually, right, making a difference in the world and people can count on you. So I wanted to feel that way because I didn't feel that way in the corporate world. So I was, obviously really into fitness myself. I had already competed in like a couple shows and I just really loved fitness. Like any other time that I had outside from work, I was in the gym where I was reading about fitness and nutrition and everything. And I really liked working on my own body. And I, helped a couple people at the gym and it just kind of took off from there. And I really gained an interest in watching people's physiques change based off of directions that I would give them, and it felt good.
Yeah. So like this, like selfishness, like not that it's like a big thing, but did it ever kind of like play a role in your coaching from the get-go? Or
well, I mean, like I said, I wanted to be somebody, but you can't be somebody without helping other people be themselves as well. So you only rise when other people rise, right? And so that's like that's a key fundamental understanding in coaching is that you have to give and give and give before you can receive anything. So there's always a degree of humility and service underlying whatever business you might create for yourself in this space.
Okay. Now, like based off of that, someone that might be like a new coach and hasn't helped a ton of people, what do you think people are starting to like kind of either go in the right direction or go wrong when it comes to helping others and want to like build a name for themselves?
I think it's that they want to build a name for themselves before they want to help other people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that makes sense.
They're putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, because, we do reside in a very competitive industry. There are new coaches cropping up every day, and the pandemic really drove that between 2020 and 2021. And I think I was talking to my assistant coach, Laura, today, one of my mentees, that, now that the pandemic's over and people are going out, they're traveling, they're doing all this stuff, fitness isn't all that important anymore. And we're seeing that in terms of adherence, in terms of consults versus signups and all that. I think across the board, I think people can agree that there has been a slight shift. Growing isn't as easy as it was before. But in general, I just think that people expect to get business right away. They want to hire a business coach. They want to take a couple courses, start making, carousel posts on Instagram, and then boom, the business is going to come. And a lot of them are disheartened when they are 30 grand in debt because they took some high level mastermind course, they hired a mentor or whatever, and they're not getting any business. It's because nobody knows who you are. Nobody trusts you. You've never delivered value for free to interest people in your work and having a conversation with you as an individual. And that's where I think a lot of new coaches fail.
Now, do you think it would be better off to, like, say someone that was going into the space, to have them start with some type of like in-person personal training just to kind of get their feet wet and then dive more into like an online type of business?
I think so, because I had my start in personal training. I failed to mention that when I gave my introduction, but yeah, I trained clients in person at a local gym near me here in Massachusetts. And the benefits of that is that you have a community, right? The gym itself has already developed a community for you. There are people who go there, there are regulars and all that. So all you gotta be is like a decent person, and people will take note of you and start working with you. And from there, you can tap into people's networks, right? So if someone has a great workout with you, they tell their family or they tell their friends, like, hey, come to this gym. I train with Jeff, I train with Sean. He's really good. And then you can build your portfolio that way. When it comes to the online world, it's like you're going from a little pond to like a vast, deep ocean. Nobody knows who you are. There's a lot of sharks. There's a lot of other creatures out there that you got to watch out for.
Yeah.
And building trust and building value and getting the spotlight on you is a lot harder. So if you can, master that in a small pond, you're more likely to learn how to swim before you go out into the larger ocean.
That makes sense. So one of the biggest things that I kind of want to like touch base on, and I'll jump right into this today, because like the few conversations that I've had with you, you're a really, really great communicator. Was this always the case, or was this more of like a learned and applied skill that has happened over time?
I think if you ask anybody who know me personally, like if you ask like some ex-girlfriends of mine, they would all tell you that I have a way with words.
Okay. Some people have it, some people don't. I mean, like it is.
Words. I don't mind public speaking. I love to write. And I love to communicate, and my mind is always ticking. Like I never have a moment where I'm just like not thinking of anything. I wish I could, but I'm always thinking about something, and I'm always thinking about how to get that out of my brain, because if I don't get it out, I can't relax. So that's part of why I'm so good at that part of coaching, hosting and all that. Yeah.
Interesting. Then like, if that's kind of how like your brain works, have you ever like taken time to go and sit and try to like not like almost like some type of meditation where you're not necessarily thinking of thoughts but observing them in some type of way? Or
the only time my mind is shutting off is when I'm in the middle of a set.
Okay.
Like if I'm in the middle of a heavy squat or deadlift, I'm not thinking about coaching or writing posts. So I guess that's my meditation,
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So for people that are in the coaching space, how can others start to become a better communicator? Like where can they kind of start to connect with a client more?
Well, I think everyone has different communication styles. Like some people like to be on podcasts. Other people, you put them on a podcast, they freeze up. Some people like to write blog posts on their own websites. They don't want to be on social media. Some people like to be on social media and be on stories or lives. So you have to sort of ask yourself, like, and be honest, like how you like to communicate, what brings out the best in you and gives you the least amount of stage fright, so to speak. And then from there, it's about being genuine and honest and just being yourself. I know be yourself is a very generic piece of advice, but in the world of coaching, at a certain level, we all know the same thing, and so the only differentiation between working with one person versus another is your personality.
Mm, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It's because like your communication style might like it's not to take away from like your credentials and what you know, but it might not be something that I mesh well with, but it might be something that someone else meshes well with.
Exactly.
So as um like from your coaching standpoint and business standpoint, have you had to like look inward a little bit and say, okay, you know what, my communication style isn't um like effective with this person? Or have there been times where it's like, no, it's just this person is, and I'll put kind of like quotations, but uncoachable in a sense?
You know, in terms of uncoachable and, immovable object meets unstoppable force type conflict, I've only had to fire 3 or 4 clients in my, however many years of coaching now, 9, 10 years, whatever. Um, so yeah, there's some people that you just aren't going to mesh well with, but that's very,
Mhm,
very rare because as a coach, it's almost your job to put on different hats, different management styles and communication styles, and read
mhm,
people's feedback and, go, in the way that they prefer, right, to get the results that they want. Um, but in terms of modifying my persona or my approach or communication style, I'm constantly reviewing my social media. So when I'm on social media, like I have a fairly small account. So like I think I have like 4,600 followers, which is a pretty small account. I only follow 300 people. They're all clients or like some movie stars or whatever, like The Rock, or I like Taylor Swift. I follow that.
yep.
But my point there is that I don't spend time scrolling and watching other people's stuff.
Mm.
I will obsessively watch my own stuff.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that
Hmm.
sounds pretty fucking narcissistic, right? But the reason why I do that is I'm constantly analyzing my own posts and saying, well, how is this being perceived? Should I have
Okay.
said this or should I not have said this? How is the wording to this post? How did this thing look? I'm constantly like picking myself apart to shape what I call a brand or a narrative that I
Hmm.
want out there. And occasionally, like I'll admit I'm a very emotional person at times. I go by feel. I can fly off or I can control myself. And I've caught myself at times where I'm in a bad mood or I'm angry. And that certainly reflects on my social media. And then like
Hmm.
2 days later, I'm like, oh fuck, like I shouldn't have done that. Like that story, I would go back and delete it. But like
Okay.
only 300 people saw that. It's okay.
Okay, yeah. So was this something that you started doing in like the beginning of like building a business, or more towards like the middle or like where it is now? Like trying to better at each, like it almost just sounds like you're trying to I don't want to say just like critique yourself, I should say.
I didn't critique myself in the beginning. Other people critiqued
Mhm.
me.
Okay.
Because when Facebook first came out, I was in college, and I
Mhm.
obviously I wasn't coaching back then, but I used social media in a very like immature way because I used to post stuff like political stuff or like jokes that would offend certain groups of people.
Okay.
Uh, Stuff that is generally very frowned upon to be
Mhm.
posting, and I would just be every day it's something, and people are like I had friends who would message me and be like, Jeff, like you can't say that stuff, you got to take that down, that's very offensive.
Oh
you're
wow.
better you're better than that, like don't like you offended me, blah blah blah.
Huh.
So I was like, oh shit, like, that's pretty bad. But at the same time, I also had a lot of attention because people were always like, what's this motherfucker gonna post like this time,
Okay.
so that actually helped me when I flipped the switch and actually became like a decent human being. But because I already had that attention on me.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the beginning, I didn't give a fuck. And it was
Okay.
people who told me I gotta mature.
So having like so much attention on you, was it like difficult for you to be like, oh, like not like have an ego to say, oh, well, all these people like want to hear from me. Like your ego is being like lifted.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you get feelings like that when like, I'll admit, like, whenever I make a post on Instagram and
Mhm.
it gets like over 500 likes and like 600 shares or whatever, I'm like, oh, I did pretty good. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty close. You know, I think everybody would feel that way and
Yeah.
get that little ego stroke that, oh, like
Mhm.
people really like my stuff, you know? But I think, you know, I do realize that that stuff doesn't matter at the end of the day. You know, I think ego is something that doesn't belong in coaching. And while we all have one of varying sizes, we should all do our best to eliminate it as often as possible.
Okay. Now, were there times when you were first starting where your ego would take over in certain situations? And kind of
Yes,
how did you start to get past some of those?
absolutely. I mean, even with coaching, it can be hard, right? Because you're an authority figure,
Mhm.
and it can be dangerous if you begin to only view yourself as an authority figure that directs and you don't listen. So
Okay.
listening is a very, very important aspect of understanding your client and then being able to change your approach. Because if you're constantly directing, you're always doing it your way,
Mhm.
right? And you're not going to be able to fit and attract to different types of people.
Okay.
So yeah, in the beginning, I did have problems with that, and I lost a lot of clients
Mm.
due to that. I've probably lost like 40 or 50 clients
Okay.
over time
Yeah.
because of my ego and because of dogmatic approaches or
Hmm.
being a hard ass to people, and yeah, it didn't work out well.
Now, how did you start to kind of separate that line of this is my ego and this is what or maybe I shouldn't say this is my ego, but this is what I want you to do. And this is what the client wants to do, and how to kind of start to meet in the middle.
Well, I'm going to begin the answer with the words I think. Okay.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
there have been a lot of like studies or books that I've read about leaders who are better perceived when they use the words I think, or maybe we can try this, so not like I need you to follow this and this. If you use the words I think, it makes you sound educated, somewhat confident, but also not like overly egotistical. Like no matter, like I bet you anything we're gonna do, get this done this way or whatever. So it comes from almost like a humble yet confident and caring persona or viewpoint in the
Mhm.
situation. So I try to begin my directives as a leader now with the words, I think if we do this, we might be able to achieve this. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So you're almost kind of just like asking for their feedback of can like do they think that they can even do it? Is that what
Yes.
you're kind of looking for? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now let's say that someone is really like struggling to say like with just an outlook of can I do this? Is
Mm.
that someone that might not be, and I understand that this can be like individualized, but is that a case where it's like maybe this person can't do this right now? Or how can I get this person to actually believe that they can do this?
Well, in that case, I would ask them, is what I'm asking you to do outside of the realm of your capacity or competency right now?
Okay.
And sometimes they would say, yeah, this is just too much. I've got too much going on. I really need to like scale back on the workouts. I can't do 4 times a week. I could probably do twice. I can't track my macros. It's too stressful, but I could probably do something else. And then I'll be like, okay, well, let's think about it. Here are a couple of things that we could do that will still help you move in the right direction, maybe a little bit slower. So how about this, and this? And then we kind of discuss that and come up with an agreeable situation or a solution.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So have you found that there are a lot of coaches now that don't really have this approach and have more of a like dictator type approach, or do you think that this is an approach that people are like open to?
I think over time, coaches will have to, or will find that they have to be open to this type of approach, because I was a coach that had my own beliefs,
Mhm.
and I approached not like a cookie cutter approach, but
Mhm.
I had like a certain way of thinking when I approached every client.
Okay.
And sometimes that worked. Most of the time that would work. But
Mhm.
then other times it wouldn't work. And those other times where it didn't work kept stacking up. right?
Mm,
So if every game you enter, let's think of it this way, like every
mhm.
game or match or whatever you enter, you you end up winning, right? But then you'll lose some. But then over the course of time, if you've lost like 50 games and won, like 200, you start to think, well, what caused those 50 games for me to lose?
Okay.
You go back and you review your plays or whatever, and then you have like, an undefeated winning streak, you know?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So, um, what I kind of want to touch base on next would be, when would you think the right, this is almost kind of circling back to where we kind of started, but when do you think is if you were to have like a right time to start to take on clients as a coach?
Hmm. Well, I would always encourage people to be certified in some way first.
Okay.
So, like myself, I'm ACSM certified for training,
Mm-hmm.
AFPA certified for nutrition. Granted, those two certifications didn't really teach me much. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even apply anything that I've learned from them. But I think an ACE certification, where you can just take an online exam and they mail you the certification, is a good place to start. And you can start taking on clients anytime,
Mm-hmm.
really. Friends of yours, family
Mm-hmm.
members, you start helping people for free and seeing what you can do.
Okay. Now, let's say that you struggle to get results with the first couple of people that you start to take on, even when you're doing it for free. When do you think you can start to transition into actually charging someone?
I think you can only start charging people when you have had somewhat of a resume where
Okay.
you're getting results, people are talking about you, the results are consistent, and you know why they're consistent.
Okay.
So there's, there's a success where the coach knows exactly when, what, and why, they're doing
Mhm.
certain things. And then there's a success that's a byproduct of just mistakes. Mistakes are just
Mm.
random, decisions. And those aren't usually, replicatable or whatever, or whatever the word is. Like, you can't duplicate them, right?
Mhm.
So you can't count those as successes because they're just kind of like you're throwing a dart in the dark and it happened to hit the bullseye.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so I'm very curious to ask you this. So let's say that you had like your own university, right?
Mm,
What would, if someone, like, say you had a coaching university,
mm.
okay, and you could have between like 2 year and 4 year degrees, what are some of like the main subjects that you're going to try to teach here in order for people to become successful coaches? Like, you don't have to come up with an entire curriculum for me, but I think this would be helpful for people, just because then they can go and start to look for different resources that you might say here and say, okay, you know what? I'm not really well versed in this. Let me go and pick up a book on this. And then once I can understand this, maybe this will help with some of my client cases that I have.
Mm. I might surprise you with this answer, but I think
Okay.
the first thing that I would teach in that situation is like understanding yourself,
Okay.
mastering ego, mastering
Hmm.
communication skills, leadership styles, recognizing what you default to, and recognizing what other people need. Then the another area that I would work on is communication. So
Hmm.
communication with clients. Um, what else? So ego, leadership, communication. Um,
If you just have those three, that's okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
there was another one that
Hmm.
I wanted to mention, but yeah, I would start there. I actually wouldn't even touch upon the hormones or anything because, oh, I know, deductive reasoning. That was the other one that I wanted to mention.
Okay.
And
Now, oh, you
the
can keep
reason
going.
for that is a lot of coaching isn't, protocol meet problem, problem
Mhm.
meet solution. It's not that. It's being able to think through many, many layers of a problem and using deductive reasoning to figure things out. Because what a lot of the programs are teaching right now is problem, meet, protocol, or solution. But when you see cases in real life, none of them are the same. Some of them always have some twist to it, and the protocol doesn't work. And then the coach is like, oh, well, what do I do now? Because they don't have the ability to think through and change and morph with the problems.
Okay. I want to go back to understanding yourself, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Was there a moment for you or a time period that you were uncertain of yourself and started to actually understand yourself? Or did you always kind of just have this self, I'm just lost for the word here.
Self-awareness or
Self-awareness, yes. Thank you.
I don't think I bothered with any sort of introspection or self-awareness until my business became successful.
Okay.
And I realized that even with, some degree of like fame, if you want to call it that, or making large amounts of money, it still didn't make me happy. I thought always like, oh, I'll be so happy one day when I leave corporate, I start a business and that business grows and I'm successful, I'm making money and all this stuff. And yeah, all that stuff happened for me. I'm not like on TV, I'm not like super famous or whatever, but I make a good living. And there are some nights or some days where I'm like depressed and I'm severely unhappy. I'm unhappy when I get more clients. I'm unhappy when a few clients drop off. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? What's going on here? And it's, it led me to therapy. I was in therapy for a year. A lot of people don't know that. But mainly 2021, I was in therapy. And like, I was just really obsessed with like material success and using like financial numbers to dictate like whether I'm better than other people or not. And, in the end, it really led to a very lonely dead end because, I was getting clients and I thought, I was working crazy hours, making that money so I could use that yardstick and prove my worth or my level on the pecking ladder or whatever, pecking order. And I just ended up being really alone and depressed. And I didn't have time for my friends, didn't have time for my family, and people stopped texting me and calling me. And I was just alone with my business.
Yeah. No.
That was like probably last year, during the winter that I felt really, really low. And so this year I've changed my approach. And I didn't set a revenue target. I'm not about that, so it's been better.
Okay. Now, thank you for sharing that first off, but do you think that it was important for you to kind of disassociate yourself from the materialistic things? Or do you think it's more important for you to kind of try to go and reconnect maybe with some of the relationships that had dropped off for your like own personal happiness?
I have had to put my ego aside even more and apologize to people in my life who I've pushed aside and ask them to reconnect with me. It's like, hey, I'm sorry I didn't make time for you. I'm sorry, like when you asked me to hang out, I told you that I was on a call or I had to work. I'm sorry I spoke to you like you were a client, like yelling at you. Sorry I only made time for you when it was convenient for me. Those type of conversations I've had to have. And the relationships like are being repaired. They're not like it was before. But life is a lot better when you have people around you who you want to be with and they want to be with you. Yeah.
So someone that might have like the same mentality that you had starting out, very driven, possibly very money focused, kind of looking for that success, what would be something that you might tell them to help them not really get sucked into that and make sure that they're putting their own self and their own happiness first, not with a dollar value?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all get into this for into this to help people, right? The thing is like in this business, you can't make money unless you actually do a good job helping people. That's why you see a lot of people talking about making impact, changing lives. I want to change 1,000 lives, blah, blah, blah. That's just a nice way of saying that you want to make a fuck ton of money too, because
Mhm.
are you really going to coach 1,000 people for free? No, you just don't, like, you don't want to go out and say, I want to make $500,000 this year in coaching. You
Mhm.
know, that's kind of an asshole thing to say. You want to say,
Yeah.
I want to help 100 clients this year, change their lives. Sounds a lot better.
Mhm.
Now the thing is, you're always going to want to help more people, whether it's from that altruistic, I made a difference perspective, or you want to make more money. And you want to make money in this business, that's fine too, right?
Mhm.
You still got to help people to make that money.
Mhm.
But there's a limit to all of us, right? So recognize where that limit is, where you're just doing it to do it more versus doing it to achieve a level of satisfaction that's unique to you. So it's sort of like when people are on contest prep, you see the people who do shows because they
Mhm.
can just post about it on Instagram. Hey, I'm doing a
Mhm.
show. Hey, look at this meal. Hey, look at this cardio session done. Versus the people who just do it for themselves and they don't post any of it on social media, because by doing so, it almost robs them of their experience.
Mhm. Okay.
So coach because you want a personal experience. Don't coach and make money because you want to show people that you're doing it.
Mm. No, that makes sense. I think it's just, I think for a lot of people, it's hard to not like, it's hard to have that hard conversation with yourself of, do I actually enjoy what I'm doing when I'm coaching, or am I actually just looking for the monetary rewards from it?
Yeah.
And I think that's where people kind of like get um, conflicted and confused. And was there a moment for you that you were like, hey, you know what, or I guess you already kind of answered this. I wasn't sure if there was like a certain like, this was it, like I can't do this to myself anymore, but I guess this would be like your 2021 of, you know what, I'm only searching for monetary gain. Was it still like fulfilling to you even when you were looking for the mass amounts of like monetary gain and material things?
It wasn't fulfilling at all, because 2021, I mean, I don't know how long you've been following me, but I've said it
Hmm.
before on podcasts, whatever. So I'll
Hmm.
get here, but my goal was to break over $500,000 in coaching. And I did. I exceeded that goal, and I was going to buy a brand new Porsche 911, which I'm very, very happy that I did not buy. I drive a cheap Jeep Grand Cherokee instead. And I put that money away. But yeah, chasing that was probably like one of my worst years of my life ever. It was like I worked insane hours. I had horrible relationships. My health was shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I made it. And it's like, okay, cool. All right, now I have to pay taxes.
Yeah. Now, um, I'm not sure if I don't want to cut it short, but I think we're gonna have to, because I don't know if you've ever seen this. Something clicked up and it was like, I only have like 5 minutes remaining in this. I have to
Yeah,
upgrade to
because
Pro Zoom.
you got to get like, you got to upgrade to like Zoom Pro.
Oh, well, I didn't know this. So
It's okay.
I've won over 40 minutes before, but I feel like that's an okay place to stop for today.
We've had
So
a good conversation.
yeah, yeah, no, thank you for joining me. And I guess we'll just share where we can find you and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Instagram at First
Mhm.
Call Out Fitness. Website's firstcalloutfitness.com. I guess if you wanted to physically find me, you can come to Westbrook. I won't tell you my address, but yeah, that's about it. Yeah, if you want to,
Yeah.
I offer mentorships, coaching, consults. If you just want to call me and shoot the shit, that's fine. You still got to pay me though. So
Yeah.
that's
No,
it.
that works. So, all right. Thank you, Jeffrey. All right.
Yeah,
That's it for today. Sorry to cut it short there.
no worries.